So this is how the interface for the SAP looks like. Okay, and for beginners, this is how the SAP interface looks like. And if you're using a server access, when you've installed that server access on your computer, so this is how the login looks like. So first of all, I would try to log into the system. And here it tells me to input a user ID and a password. So you can see that this is called the GUI interface. Okay. And the GUI has to be installed by your administrator. All right. Now, this is what we call the logon page. Here we have the clients. Okay. And then we have the user ID and the password. So normally this client will be given to you by the administrator as well as the user ID. So once you get your access, if you're using a paid server access, the administrator gives you the client number and the user ID and a password, which you might need to change. Okay. Because the system can prompt you to put a new password. All right. So we're going to try to log into this system and see what we have. So I'm going to put my password here and I click enter. Now, this is where it takes me to. Okay, so here we have standard SAP menus. These are standard SAP menus, but if you want it to be customized, you might have to click menu here. And here you have the user menu. So we have two menus. We have the SAP menu and the user menu. All right. So the user menu, you can use it for customization. And for the SAP menu, these are standard SAP menus. So one thing I also want us to know is that if you've not watched a video on the S4HANA and the ECC, I'll be attaching the link below so that you could watch the video. Or if you're seeing this video from YouTube directly, I'd advise that you go through the previous videos that we've had and watch the video on the ECC and the S4HANA. So one wonderful feature that differentiates the ECC from the S4HANA is the user experience. Okay, so for ECC, the user experience, it has a GUI user experience. It's called the GUI, which is the GUI. Okay, but for the S4HANA, it has a Fiori interface. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to navigate between the two interface so that you can be able to see. But before then, under here, we have informations about the system. So if you want to see informations on the system properties for the client, the user, you can be able to come here. So here you can see the program that you're running on. Okay. And you can see the client, user ID, and every other technical details can be found here also. All right. So I have also made a video explaining all of these buttons and what they mean. And you can also check for the page. For if you're watching this from LinkedIn, I would attach the link of that video directly so that you can also see and learn. So we're going to try to create a functional location, and I'm going to do that here on the GUI, and we are also going to do it on the Fiori Launchpad, which is the user experience for S4HANA. Okay. Now, for people that don't know the difference between these two, a brief summary is S4HANA is more of the advanced and improved version compared to ECC. Okay. And the both of them have different user interface. Now, in the ECC, we make use of transaction codes, which are very short codes to make us escape opening all of these drop downs. So here, if I want to navigate to creating a functional location, I'm going to take it through the long step of opening logistics and then navigating down to plant maintenance and then navigating down to management of technical objects and then to functional location. So you can see that all of these take so much time in navigating, but that is why we have the transaction codes, which are LIL01. Basically, you need to familiarize yourself with the transaction codes for the ECC. Okay. So I'll use the T code IL01 to create a functional location, and I'll click the tick button here. So it directly takes me here, which makes me escape the long process of opening those drop downs. All right, so I'm going to quickly try to create a functional location here. Not so much. And we are also going to try to create it on the Fiori interface and see how the both are. All right, so I'm going to create a functional location here. So I'm going to assume a functional location for myself. Oh, we have to first of all select a structural indicator. So I'll select the structural indicator. I want to use structure A. I'll click enter. So I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 dash 1, 2, 2 dash AD dash 12. Now, this video is not going to be teaching you about functional location. Again, you're going to find the attachment of the video on how to create functional location on the page. All right. So I've imputed my functional location as well as my edit mask and structural indicator. So I'm going to click enter to go to the next field. So it takes me here. I need to describe my functional location. So let's say I am creating a functional location for the milling machine. Okay, so maybe the department is production. Okay, so production milling machine. I'm gonna give it a name. Then you would go ahead to fill all of these basic information like your object type. Okay, so milling machine. We don't have that object type configured here, so I might just have to select equipment type, authorization group. I would have to pick an authorization group. I might assume a weight of the machine and select the unit. All right, so I want my startup date to remain today's date. Now, all of these fields, you mustn't fill all of them. Okay, so you fill those ones that you have informations about. Some of them are optional, while some of these fields are very important. Like I said, for me, when I tell people about creating functional locations, I always say that put as much information as you can when you're creating your functional location, because a functional location is a placeholder. It's an identifier for every asset. It could be a machine. It could be a building. So someone should be able to look at this equipment details, the functional locations details, and give appropriate information about that asset. So I'm going to be assuming that my acquisition value is 1,200. And I'm going to select, let's just select something. Maybe this, I really don't know what this currency is, but yeah. Acquisition date, I would have to select an acquisition date. So maybe we acquired it, let's just put last year, 2024, 10th. So if you have the manufacturer's details, you can get the manufacturer's details here. Now, normally, the information like this is normally got from the machine template. Okay, so for every machine, there is always a template attached to it. All right, so you can get it on the machine template and then you can fill. So we're also going to fill information about the location, which is very important. So these do not follow the optional. So I'm going to select my maintenance plans. Remember, you always have to know your maintenance plans. Okay, you have to always know your maintenance plans. So I would impute a maintenance plan that I have configured and location. Okay, I don't have a location here. So I would include a work center that I've also configured on the system. So my ABC, I assume that this is an A indicator machine. All right. So if you have the address concerning, okay, this is grayed out because it's not made optional here. So I'll just have to skip that and get to the organization. So details about the organization, especially the cost center. If you have the cost center, you might have to include the cost center here. All right. And then your planner groups, main work center, you include them. Then we look at the structure. All right, so I think this is all for creating the functional location. Now, for the structure, I always say that when you're creating functional location, always attach it to a structure after creation. So like I said, we're not going to be looking at that in this video because this video is just to show you how to navigate the SAP system and to show you the difference between the two user experience. Okay, so I'll just go ahead to save this. So we have our functional location created. Now what we're going to do now is to look at how it is created using the user interface for Fiori. Now one difference I want us to know about this Fiori is that it does not use the transaction codes, okay? And the applications are in form of a tile. It uses application names instead. So we'll just navigate through the Fiori from this link over here. Okay, so you can see that a lot has really evolved from what used to be the old SAP system. So for some of us that's come across videos of 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you can see that the interface that SAP system from 10 years ago, you know, the interface that SAP system has kind of evolved. All right, so now we have the Fiori Launchpad. So I'm going to click here to navigate to the Fiori. So it's a web-based. It's web-based, so it opens up here. So it prompts me to input my user. So this is how the interface for the Fiori looks like. Okay, this is how the user experience looks like for the Fiori. And for some of you that already use SAP, you can see that this could look like what you're using in your workplace. So if what you use in your organization looks like this, then you know that your organization is running on the Fiori interface, okay? But if what your organization looks like what we had previously looked at, then you know that your organization is running on what is called the GUI interface. All right. So here you can see that these are represented as tiles. Tiles. All right. Tiles. And each of these tiles, they are applications. Okay. So you can see that there is no way that we need to put in any T codes or what have you. All you need to do is just know your applications. All right. And one wonderful thing about the Fiori interface is that the authorizations are given based on roles. Unlike what we had already looked at, though it can be customized in the GUI, but you can see that there are just a lot of drop downs. Even some of the transactions that do not concern us, we still found them there. All right. But for here, these applications are given based on your role. So if you are a maintenance planner, you have specific roles for yourself, which should be very different from the roles of a technician. All right. And all of these roles are given through what is called the Fiori library. The Fiori library is a library that contains a list of all the applications. All right. So for every application, standard SAP applications, you can get them right here. So when I click all apps, I want to try to navigate the create equipment. Okay, create equipment, for instance. So you can see the create equipments here. But one thing for this Fiori library, it contains applications for both the GUI, supporting both the GUI and the Fiori. So I'm going to give you an instance. I'll try to open up this. Let's open up this create equipment first. Now you can see details about this equipment over here. You see that the application type is SAP GUI. Okay, not SAP Fiori. All right. So it means that even in that Fiori environment, I could install this particular app, assign it to my group, all right, assign them to my catalogs, and assign them to my role, even if the application type is not supporting Fiori. Okay, but on Fiori, it has a quite different name on Fiori. So what it has is what is called the create technical objects. So that's why I said if you have been using the GUI in your company over time, I think the only issue you might face is really trying to familiarize yourself with what the corresponding description or application name is on S4HANA, because a lot has really been changed. Okay. It is on Fiori because a lot has really been changed. All right. So they've really changed a lot of the transactions names, but not all of them. All right. But many of them have been changed, and some of them include this create up equipment, create functional locations. All right. So the namings on Fiori have been changed to create technical objects. Okay. So if I click create technical objects here, I'm going to click enter. Yeah. So we have what we call the define technical object. All right. And for define technical object, you can now see that the application name is SAP Fiori, okay, which is different from what we saw in the create equipment, which had the SAP GUI as the application type. All right. So a video on how to also assign applications to groups, to catalogs, and assign them to roles have also been made and uploaded. I am also going to drop the link of this video so that you can also access it to learn how to get these applications. How do you get these applications to this place? How were these applications transported here? All right. It's not magic. Okay. So unlike the GUI, you can see that in the GUI, we don't need to move any application from any Fiori library to anywhere. We don't need to assign it. We already have those transactions on the system, both the ones you need and the ones you don't need. All right. But for the Fiori, because it is role based, we have the Fiori library, which we've already shown. And that Fiori library contains applications. You can then assign those applications directly from that Fiori library, link them to catalogs, groups, and assign them to your role. Okay, so the video is up, and I'll be attaching the link too. If you're watching this from the YouTube channel, you can go through the channel and get that video as well. So we're going to try to create a functional location here and see how it looks like. Now for the Fiori, unlike the GUI, what we had was create functional locations, right? But here we have create technical objects. So I'm going to click this tile over here, and it takes me to creating technical objects. So here we have a drop down. Okay, so on the Fiori, technical objects is defined by functional locations and equipment. So you're going to select what you want to create. If you want to create functional location, you select it. If you want to create equipment, you select. So you can see it's quite different from the other interface. So, but what is very peculiar for these transactions is that we don't really have anything that is changing, unlike the application name changing and the way you navigate it changing. The fields that you fill are still the same thing. Like if you look here, we still have the structural indicator, which we saw, and the technical objects. I'll just select a technical object here. So you can see that what we have here is totally different from what we had. It's totally different from what we had in the GUI, though the fields are almost the same thing, but the display is very different. Okay. So we still have the location data, organizational data, the structure. All right. But here, we also have the shift note and shift type. So this was just set, and most of the configurations that are here are based on business requirements. Okay, so some fields might decide to be hidden and some fields might decide to be displayed. All right, so just like we mentioned when we tried to create it in the previous one. So this is basically how you create it, the same thing, location data, organizational data, and the likes of it. All right, so the only one other difference between this method and the one on the GUI is when you want to display the structure, it's still the same. Displaying the structure for the GUI what we have in the GUI, I would take us back to the GUI so we can see. So here what we have is display functional location structure, which I'm going to try to navigate. So we have here down to plant maintenance, down to management of technical objects. So you can see that we have structural display. So this one displays your structure, which a lot of us are aware of. So this displays your structure. Okay, we don't have a structure existing for this, but if you want to display it, you'd have to use this IH01, which is structural display. But for the Fiori interface, it is quite different. What we have here is the asset viewer, and you can navigate that from, you can also click the drop down and then you see the display technical object in asset viewer. All right. So the asset viewer actually takes you to the object structure. All right. Unlike what we have in the GUI, where we use T codes IH01 and it has a different naming. So for here, we have the display asset viewer. All right. So this is how it looks like. So this is the structure. Okay. This is how the structure looks like. All right. So when I drop this down, it takes me to what is next. When I collapse this node, and I collapse this node. Okay, so I have only configured two structures here. So you can see that it is different from what we have on the GUI. Okay, but the GUI structure would still display as something like this. All right, but the only difference is the way this one is displayed. You can see that it displays this structure down, but I can still be able to see data concerning this particular functional location. If I put my cursor here, it changes. Okay, you can see that I can still see that, but for the GUI, all right, it doesn't work that way. This Fiori runs on a HANA database. It's called the HANA database. Okay, and the HANA database is the reason why some of these things can be done. You can be able to still navigate to other applications even from one application. But if you look at the GUI, you can only just view the order structure. All right. And there is no permission to, if you want to display the particular functional location, you would have to use the display functional location application again, display functional location transaction again. All right, which is not what is done here. From here, you can see that you don't need to go back to displaying these technical objects. All right, you can see what is going on, what you have created on this functional location just by the right hand side. So this is what differentiates the Fiori, right, method of creating the functional location and displaying the functional location structure to the GUI. So basically, there are a lot of differences, but as you transact with this particular softwares, the both of them, you will see a lot of differences, a lot of changes that have been made, all right, most especially on the transactions. Okay, so I hope you have been able to understand these versions, all right, of the SAP, which is the ECC and the S4HANA, and the user experience that they run with, how to navigate them. And we've also done an example of the functional location that you've seen the difference between the two of them. Also, we also looked at how to navigate to the SAP system and see what has been given to you by your administrator. All right. So thank you so much for watching this video.